that whole thing started my relationship with Motown once again through the Jacksons. There were like mad record executives coming up to, set every day, just trying to see like, who was singing and who had talent. And I was fortunate enough at the time to meet a gentleman by the name of Jarrell and Mr. Steve McKeever, who were the head guys up at Motown at the time. And I was offered a record contract, which eventually led to the release of my first album, Love Ambition. That project was great. I got a chance to work with Keith Crouch, who had also worked on Brandy's first album. I got a chance to work with Hakeem Abdul-Samad. If anybody's familiar with Hakeem, he was in a group called The Boys. Like, they were a boy group that were out like years ago that I was huge fans of. Well, anyway, during that time, these guys had, started producing, and I got a chance to work with them. I also got a chance to work with one of my family members, my first cousin, Christopher Tricky Stewart, who's now one of, like, if not the biggest producer in music right now. So yeah, I got to work on that, and that was a great experience making that album. My personal feelings towards it is like I felt like the record company could have done a little bit more to like promote it and to get it out there, but the people that were able to hear it really appreciate it. Like, I still get a lot of people to this day that come up to me and they're like, man, I just want to tell you, like, Love Ambition is my album. Like, I listen to that record every day, or whenever I get a chance, whenever me and my wife are hanging out or whatever, like, I love it, and it was dope, and when are you coming out with more music? So being a part of that situation was also good too, and it was also a learning experience. It taught me a lot about the business during that time. So everything happens for a reason.
And in the Stay With Me video, also you had Miss Boom Cat, Gotcha, Lorianne Gibson from Making the Band.
Oh yeah, Lorianne, absolutely. That was the time when I moved to New York and Andre Harrell had taken over Motown, and I guess his goal was to kind of reinvent Motown for the generation today. So he brought in like this great staff of people, hardworking people such as Lorianne Gibson, and he had a great A&R staff, great people in the marketing department, and I learned a lot from those guys. I lived in New York for like maybe 2 or 3 years. I mean, Andre Harrell pretty much taught Puffy the things that he knows now, that he's been able to take to the next level and become Diddy. So to kind of be working for a guy who brought so many people to the forefront like that, it was definitely an honor and definitely a learning experience.
And by you being from Chicago, were you cool with any of the guys from the group Subway that was signed to Biv 10?
Oh, hell yeah. Eric, Keith, Roy, like all of those guys, like we pretty much almost lived in the same neighborhood. Like I think Eric lived in like the neighboring town in Chicago. Keith lived on the north side. Him and Trey Rell, they lived on the north side. Roy, he lived out on the south side with the rest of us. So no, those guys, like, we would always hang out, and I still keep in contact with a couple of them to this day. Like, I spoke to Eric maybe like a year and a half ago. I spoke to Keith maybe I think around the same time, like a year and a half ago, because he was working with Usher for a minute, and I think he still does. But yeah, all those guys are doing really good.
Okay, because I believe Eric was in another Oprah movie called There Are No Children Here with I forgot the kid's name. He played in Cop and a Half with Burt Reynolds. And now, how did you end up landing the role of Marcus in Smart Guy with Taj Mowry, who is the brother of T and Tamara Mowry from Sister Sister in The Game?
I got that project. Let's see, I was living in New York at the time. I had done a guest spot on Sister Sister. My manager at that time was Suzanne DePass, and she was the executive producer of both of those shows. So I had done a guest spot for Sister Sister, and she had told me that she was developing a new show that she was going to be taking to the WB network called Smart Guy. Of course, she told me, she was like, I can't show you any favoritism in that regard, but, I'd really like for you to, audition for it. So, once again, I put myself on tape. That time I wasn't in Chicago, I was in New York. So, I went to the Disney building in New York. They put me on tape. They sent it out here to Los Angeles. The network saw it, the right people saw it, and I was brought on board as Marcus Henderson, and that was really great too. I worked with a really close friend of mine, Omar Gooding, on that show, and we had a ball every day that we were working. Miss Essence Atkins, who, as a matter of fact, is in Love for Sale, the film that I talked about earlier. She has a role in that film, so we were able to work together again. But we've always had a very, close personal relationship. She's like a sister to me. And also JJ, my father, the guy who played my father on the show, I recently just saw him out here on the 4th of July when I was hanging with my girlfriend and her family, and he was just walking down the beach, and I saw him, and I was like, hey man, what's going on? And we exchanged information again, and he was a real cool guy. Me and Taj, we spoke to each other maybe about, I don't know, maybe like 9 months ago, because he was in Savannah, Georgia, playing football, and I have a home in Atlanta. That's where my family resides. That's pretty much like my home base. That's where I'm at. So I was gonna drive down to Savannah to check out one of his games, but unfortunately I wasn't able to do it because I had wound up getting some other project and I had to leave. But yeah, all of those people I still stay in contact with, and I'm sure everybody would be glad to know that they're all doing very well.
And for those that don't know, Omar Gooden is of course the brother of Cuba Gooding Jr., aka Mr. Show Me the Money, aka Michael Jordan Hanes underwear commercial, and host of the 80s and 90s kids show from Nickelodeon, Wild and Crazy Kids.
Yep.
Now, how did you end up getting the role of Ernest in Drumline?